Hi, this is Emma Burford here from Business Rocks, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be sharing the space online with Lauren Riley. Lauren Riley is a successful practicing family solicitor, and many of you will recognise her from being on The Apprentice 2014. And today, Lauren's given up her Saturday. Hi there, Lauren.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us because, as I say, the best day for us fitted out was a Saturday. So she's going to be sharing lots of things about herself and her business. And we'll kick off with her sharing a little bit about her childhood and where she grew up and a bit more about herself.
Sure. So, my childhood was, I suppose, fairly unremarkable. I'm an only child. I grew up, you can probably tell from my accent, in the northwest of England, a bit north of Manchester on the Fylde coast near Blackpool. Quite a sleepy seaside town, really. My mum and dad, my mum and dad divorced when I was fairly young, but I still had an excellent relationship with both of them. My father was kind of really sort of pushing me to the next level, I suppose. And my mum was a teacher, so academics were always quite high on the list of priorities, I suppose. And I went straight through in terms of academics. I had so went to primary school, high school, sixth form, then university, and it was only after that that my career and my interest started to be a bit more interesting, I suppose you'd say, than just if I went straight into a job. I did a bit of travelling, I did a business graduate scheme, and then I went back to the law, which actually gave me some really valuable life and work experience before I took my path as a solicitor. But yeah, I had my extended family don't live up north actually, so I had to travel quite a lot to see them. But other than that,
Ah,
really,
fantastic. Now, I know, Lauren, for many of us, and there's many millennials watching the videos and, joining in, looking at the magazines, digital lifestyle. So, it's good to hear that you perhaps were not so sure about what you wanted to do at first, even with a great, teacher background helping you through all the different exams that we have to take. But so at what point did you think, I want to be a solicitor? Did you really kind of get that after you've been travelling? Is that what happened?
It's a really interesting point and something that I quite like to speak about, because I think there's a lot of pressure on young people to know
Yeah.
exactly what they want to do. Even in the business, we have our interns, for example, and you can see the conflict in their face, because they feel like they're somehow failing because they don't quite know at the age of 21 what they want to do with their life. And I don't actually think that's a bad thing. I would embrace that because it gives you the opportunity to explore. So how it worked out for me was that I'd always wanted, actually, from a child to be I wanted to be a barrister. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Ah.
And then I went through to uni, and university taught me some actually quite negative messages. So it is quite hard to qualify as a solicitor just because of the law of averages. There are not enough training contracts and newly qualified positions for the amount of people who want to be a lawyer. So that kind of was drummed into you over time. And even though I was always a really determined person, even really from a child, I suppose that must have got into my subconscious somehow. And that I thought, oh, well, do I really want this? Because the chances are I'm going to pay upwards of £10,000 to sit my LPC, my legal practice course, and that's not guaranteeing me a position. I was really average background. That's a lot of money from where I come from. So it was a decision for me. And so I went off and I did some travelling and I worked abroad, and then I came back, and I'd always been interested in business. So I did my business graduate scheme with an unrelated field with a car company, and I learned a valuable skill set. But afterwards, I'd spent nearly 3 years doing that, and I was kicking myself because then I was like, well, I do want to be a lawyer. I'm going to go back to the law. And I'm like, look at all this time that I've wasted. I really berated myself about it. But actually, that was one of the most valuable things that I did, because I probably wouldn't have got a training contract had I not have had that wealth of business experience and commercial awareness. And certainly when I've set up my own company now, and particularly when you're a startup, you sit with so many different hats on. Now I have all those different skill sets to draw upon. So actually, it was the best thing I could have done. I just didn't realise it at the time.
No, I think looking back through rose-tinted glasses now, we all look back and think, oh, if we hadn't done this, if we hadn't done that. But actually, it makes you become a round person, doesn't it? You get a lot more life skills, a lot more confidence, which I think for many of us is something that is hard to gain. You're just not always born with confidence. Were you quite confident, do you think, as a child? You come across on TV as confident, but is that really you?
You know what? I think, and this is a completely unrelated, and I have no statistics to back this up. But as a child, I was a dancer and an actress. I really enjoyed the theatre, the art. I loved all that. So I was on stage from quite a young age, and I think that gives you quite a good grounding, because I was kind of used to putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Even from an age of 3, I was on a stage dancing, and that's quite nerve-wracking. So I think everybody, I do public speaking now, and I still suffer from nerves, but I think that gave me a better than average start in terms of confidence.
Yes, I'm sure it did. So what do you think, as through your career so far, have you had to give up something, had to sacrifice something to get where you are today, Lauren?
Absolutely. If you could introduce me to a startup business owner that said no to that answer, then I would suggest they're not doing it right. Well, they are. They've learned some secret that nobody else has managed to fathom.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a lawyer, I still had to work really hard. When I went to university, I still had to work 20 hours a week to help with the financing of that. So that wasn't even easy of itself to qualify as a lawyer. And when I did that, I was, really proud of myself, and as anybody that's attained their initial goal should be. But then when it comes to starting a business, it's just a whole different level. Like now, when I look back at employment, and this is no slight at anybody that is employed, but I was living the dream, and I just didn't realise it. Obviously stability of income, almost set hours. And when you start your own company, it's just completely different. So yeah, of course, I work always 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I don't get to spend the amount of quality time with my family and friends that I ought to. Just 3 weeks ago, actually, I was meant to be in South Africa for a friend's wedding, and my boyfriend and my friends all went to that. And about a month before, I just had to say, look, guys, I'm sorry, I have to pull out of this because the business just can't spare me. But that's a choice that I'm consciously making because the link app is so important to me. So I'm certainly not complaining, but so you will have to sacrifice.
Yeah, that sounds like a big sacrifice, because at the end of the day, you love your business, don't you, Lauren? Like we all do. We want them to succeed. We want to put as much time into them as we can. And if we weren't doing that, we wouldn't probably have a business, or at least not a very successful one. So, but giving up family weddings and friends' weddings, that's a big sacrifice, isn't it, for sure. So I know you touched on this earlier. I'm just going to go back to the travelling aspect. You obviously did your travelling in your kind of like a gap year, or when you weren't in employment, but do you think that's something you might go back to again at a later date, do you think? Or
well, actually, I've done 3 sets, if that's the right word, of travelling. So
yeah.
3 different, 3.5, I'd say. So I went across 28 states in America. So then I've done the Southeast Asia, and then I did a bit of more Southeast Asia and around Australia. And I did that in different times. So I did it between finishing my LPC and starting my training contract, and I actually managed to do one of them whilst in employment. So I managed to get kind of a sabbatical, if you will, or an extended annual leave break and do a month there. But would I do it again? Absolutely.
Given the chance.
Very much so, and I suppose that depends on the future of the link app, and but it could be the technology company. It's one of those things. It will either be hugely successful or not. So either way, it's not the sort of business that you would spend 20 years building up, because that technology companies just don't work like that. So fingers crossed, if things go the way that they're looking to go, and we continue with our successful run, then maybe in 5 years' time I'll be able to take a step back and
be
on a beach in Bali somewhere.
Yeah, because obviously a lot of the younger set are doing the digital nomad journey and path. They're going around working abroad and working abroad, which is fantastic. And then for many of our readers who are older, my age, or older, they basically didn't do that. I did a lot of travelling, so we have similar journeys there. I did all the places you've been to probably, and a few more. So I did a lot of travelling, but I think it is something that a lot of people aspire to want to be able to do, whether it's working out of their laptop on a beach or just being able to say, right, I'm going to take a break for a few months and go off around the world. So that's really, that's great. Now I know we touched on you being an ex-apprentice. I don't want to go into that in too much detail, but I'm sure you can share a little bit about how you got to get onto The Apprentice, because a lot of people that might be reading this, millennials, like you said, they might have been doing an intern, they've got an idea, they want to start up a business. How did you go about actually getting onto the show?
Well, I had the idea for the link app out of practice. So my background, obviously, as we've alluded to, I am a lawyer, and I could see that there was a gap in the market. Just to briefly explain what the link app does, it's a communication tool between law firms and their own clients. So when I was witnessing how lawyers were treating clients and the lack of customer service and also the lack of productivity, and I knew that technology would answer that solution. So I had the idea, but I didn't have the financing or necessarily all of the experience that I needed to take that to market. So then I think I might have been on social media actually, because I am now, and I've always been quite a fan of Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I must have seen an advertisement for it, and I had just actually come back from travelling. It was interesting, and I think it's quite a depressing time to be in when you come back from having such a good time. And I saw the application, so I made that. Never really thought much of it because I'm a lawyer. I'm entrepreneur. At the time, I didn't think I would get it, and then I got the first interview. I was like, oh, this is interesting, kind of exciting, and every time I got through another stage, I didn't think I would get on the show, but I was fortunate enough, and I did, and here I am today.
You did. That's a great. So basically, you took a bit of your determination and said, right, I'm going to give this a go, because, and I think you probably are very entrepreneurial, just because people choose a path, whether it's something that they really even were sure that they want to do. You weren't sure at the beginning. You went on, became a successful solicitor and took that career path, but then you came up with this great idea, which the link app has brought out, to get information to solicitors and keep them in touch with what's going on, which I think is fantastic. So, and going back to the show, I know I asked some of my group members, a few, if they had any questions, and one of them was, is there a softer side to Lord Sugar? So that's the only thing I'm going to ask about him. Is it all bravado, or does he have a softer side, or is he really quite tough like he appears to be on the TV?
Well, does he have a softer side? My answer would have to be no.
Okay.
But does he have one? I'm not the best person to answer that. I'm sure if you ask his wife or his family, I'm sure they'd say yes, he's a lucky individual. If you ask me or any candidate on The Apprentice or any of the production crew that run around after him, he's just exactly like you see on the telly. He talks to everybody in the same manner. So no, I'd have to say. But it's a TV program, and particularly once you've been through that and you've seen how it's edited and you've seen unfortunately what their priorities are, it's very much about entertainment. Yeah. So I'm sure he's playing a role, to be honest.
For the cameras a little bit. Cool.
A
little bit. Cool. Okay. Now, I know you've touched a little bit and explained about the app, but I'd love to get down into a little bit of the nitty-gritty. There's people watching. You mentioned interns earlier. How did you take that idea, your conception of an idea, into putting it together? How did you grow your team? I know you're working really hard, like we all do, we put a lot of work in, but how would you say if someone had some idea and they wanted to kind of get on with it, how would you start, putting that together? What would you suggest they do? That's a long question, isn't it? So
it's quite long, and I hope you've got a couple of hours to but I'll try and
yeah.
So the short answer was, I knew I was onto something, because, and this would be one of my tips, because my background is law, I knew this product would be used by law firms and it was necessary. It answers a need, and that's quite important in business. So I knew I was onto something, and then I just thought, well, I'll see how far I can take it, because I wasn't financially in a position to just leave work, so I still continued to practice law and sort of part-time, see how the link app could evolve. And every time I took one step, even the basics like do market research before I really started anything, the answers I was getting were so positive, and so many people wanted to come on board with my vision. I was just like, great, and it kind of snowballed. That did I ever think I would sort of work in this as a full time and we'd be enjoying some of the successes that we are? Probably not even myself. It's more than I could have dreamt of. But it was just a snowball effect. So I started out and took some baby steps. You know, I created the website and some of the very basics, and then the team and who I work with just came out of necessity because we didn't have, you know, I didn't win The Apprentice, so I didn't have a 250k budget. So it came out of necessity when I needed that person. So, for example, it's a technology company, but I'm not a techie, so I can't code. I didn't create the product myself. I informed all of the decisions that surround the technology, but not made it. So obviously I needed to fill that role. And it was just about who came on board with the right passion, really, because as we've alluded to, this is my baby, and you know, I really want this to succeed. I'm not just going to go and take on anybody to fill that role. So yeah, it was sort of gradually, really. It wasn't one moment where I was like, right, this is it. I've got a huge team, and of course I'd like to grow us a lot more than we are now. But yeah, every day it was all incremental, and then these fantastic things are happening. Because it's so innovative in that legal space, and we've got a lot of PR, a lot of the legal publications were really interested in what the Link app was up to, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And with our distribution chains, people wanted to help us get the product out there, and people have just been so fantastic and supportive, and that's, you know, I can't thank people enough. It's amazing.
No, that's fantastic. So did you have to outsource the app side of it, you know, to like India, for example? How did you find your app person and, you know?
No, I didn't. Well, it was actually, that was kind of an organic discussion because I had a friend of mine, when I very first had the idea, obviously because my background isn't tech, my friend of mine was a developer that was employed at the time. An English developer friend, and I just ran ideas past him. I'd be like, well, what do you think of this? And then eventually he got really interested in the product and kind of sort of soaked up some of my passion, I suppose. And it was actually him that I got to build it, because then he was between roles and he was contracted purely for the Link app for a period of time to build that product.
So he took it on and you felt very comfortable, because that's always a worry for many people. They've got this idea, they're starting to build their team, and then they may need something built, but it's finding people that don't let them down. And, you know, so it sounds like you fell into the right place at the right time, and obviously your friend built something fantastic for you to be able to market now, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. But now we have a team, so we've had to evolve. You know, when we built our MVP, it was just built by one individual, and now we have several developers working on the project. So, and that's one of the most difficult things for me, and it's about trust and relationships in business, because you take on an external provider or even an employee, but you take them on and you have to trust that what they say they can deliver upon, and
yes.
And that you're letting go part of your business to somebody else, and you know, that's always a risk.
Yeah, I think that's how entrepreneurs become successful, by being able to let go and being able to give out different parts of the business to other people, because the natural thing is, yeah, for many of us, I can do all of that, you know, but there comes a point when there's not enough time. So, yeah. Okay, so I know you've got lots of exciting plans. Have you set your goals yet? For many of us this time of year, we're thinking about what our goals are for 2016. Have you set those all out yet? What do you have planned for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, actually. And it's something that, like I say, when I do my public speaking, it's something that I advocate goal setting and sort of, periodic reviews of those goals, not even just setting them. But have I sat down and done it? No. But the kind of organic for me. But so obviously with the Link app, we've built a fantastic product, a fantastic brand awareness in that space. We've got law firms using us, we're getting feedback. So now it's about growth, and hopefully exponential growth for 2016. So we've got all the things in place to see us just sort of skyrocket, and that's what obviously it's my job to oversee that. So that's the goals for me in the business. I've got a personal goal, to go to Australia for Christmas next year.
Fantastic.
Holidays few and far between, and I've got some friends out there that I'd really like to visit. Then, as some people may know, I have my own YouTube channel now. I have a vlog on youtube.com/c/Miss Lauren Riley. And so that's relatively new, actually. So I've started doing little bits about The Apprentice. I do a review, but that's not really what it's about. It just happens to be some content that I can put on there. And I want to share my journey a bit more, my advice. So that's something I really like it when I do the public speaking and I do interviews. So I feel like I maybe get to give back a little bit. Some fantastic people have helped me along the way, and I'd love to do the same. So the vlog's quite important to me. And I blog on laurenriley.co.uk regularly anyway. So I'd like to find some more time in my working week to put towards that.
Yeah, I love the vlogging idea because I think it makes you much more a real person, and obviously for me, even hiding behind a digital magazine app, it's like you're a brand, you've got different things going on, but people don't get to know you. So I've actually been doing a bit on Blab this last couple of weeks. So I think it's really good to be visible, and people definitely take that on. So I love what I have watched a couple, and they're great. I think it's brilliant. I think it's really, that's something will make you stand out more. So I love that idea, and I love the fact that you've got a goal, a personal goal as well, which is so important for us because we do get stuck down with the goals for businesses, and it's really important to actually have personal goals to reward ourselves for working so hard and doing our 7-day weeks plus, which we often do. So I think that's great as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's really true. And then I'm a big health and fitness fan. Anyone who follows me on Twitter will already probably be bored to death of me talking about that. But just recently, that's one of the sacrifices, unfortunately, and I never ever accept anybody else's excuse when they say they haven't got time to exercise, but that's one of the things I really want to put a bit more priority on in early next year. So
yeah, do you know, I'm very guilty of that because obviously, I've got 3 children and, I run business and I'm a lot older than you. So, but, we do have excuses, but because we love what we do, sometimes you think that's not as important to keep up your fitness, whether it be just walking, which is what I do. But, I think over the years, things do tend to slide sometimes, and it's really important to recognise that and make sure you keep it up near the top of the list. Otherwise, it's very easy to just sit back and think, oh yeah, no, I'm fit, I'm young, and and not actually go out and do that. So I know you talked about talked about Twitter. Has that been the main growth area for the marketing, or what have you been doing some like Facebook ads, or how do you market your app? Love to know what you do with it.
It's really interesting. We're not in a huge January next year when I talked about the sales and growth is where our aggressive growth strategy comes from. So far, it's really just been maintenance because we've been so inundated with some fantastic opportunities. For example, like this, or the social media obviously is quite big for us. So we've just been we don't advertise anywhere specifically. I do a lot of public speaking, and that's mostly aimed at lawyers. So that's, again, a part of our marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so passionate about it. If anybody gives me the time of day, I'm always talking about lawyers. But yeah, so
I guess the type of people that you're actually connecting with, I guess, are looking at the magazines, are looking at the interviews, are looking at the stand up and talk, and I guess a lot of word of mouth. You get known, don't you, in that small circle of that niche that you're in. So it's probably you haven't had to do much advertising. That's great, isn't it? It's great if you don't have to do that.
I'm certainly not going to sit there in any type of an arrogant position, because I think we certainly will do, and that is the plan from January onwards. But this far, it's been about really the stability of the technology and really sort of getting getting people using it, getting the accurate feedback, and really sort of getting that product that really answers the need. Really what lawyers wanted.
So is the app global, Lauren? I have to say I'm not sure on that one. Is it based on the UK market or?
We have. It's funny because we get requests. We've had requests from Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, but no, we've concentrated our efforts on the UK because that gives me a jurisdictional issue because it's law.
Right.
I think. Well, I know the UK legal market. Not to say that we won't be global, of course, but at the moment we're focusing our efforts very much. Because it's also about what I was passionate about, because I'm passionate about lawyers and their clients, and that was where I practice here in the UK, and hopefully that will be applicable globally, but I want to really corner the market and address the need of this business.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I did wonder, and I guess that makes sense because obviously the UK laws can be different to the laws around the world, so that makes it harder to do the next step at a later date. So you're not practicing your family law at the moment, I take it? You're just really just concentrating, or do you do a little bit?
No, I do still practice family law. I do a consultant role for ad hoc.
Yeah, when you've got things that you want to do. Cool. Okay, so for the next 5 years, have you got some long-term goals that maybe you can share with us? I don't know what your plans are, and I know you're still in your 20s, I believe, but the clock starts to tick, doesn't it? Have you got plans for children and settling down, or is that not really on the radar yet?
Okay. I turned 30 earlier this year, so
Okay.
I'm no longer in my 20s, I'm afraid.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. That's an interesting question, and one I don't credibly know the answer to. It's certainly not a priority for me,
No.
as you might imagine. I'm really happy with the way that my life is. One huge goal would be to address the work-life balance as the company grows and we take on more members of staff, etc. I would, particularly in 5 years' time, I would hope that, like I said before, technology companies are usually huge growth areas or not at all. So I think in 5 years' time, we'd certainly know the answer to that. And hopefully, there's a bit more time on the beach and time with my family and kind of paying. I suppose it's paying people back, and I don't necessarily mean by money. I mean by my time and thanking them for all the support, because the support of your family and friends when you're starting a business, they don't get to see the way that they should do, and you have to let them down on some things, which is terrible. But hopefully in 5 years' time, that's when you can give back to the people who've helped you along the way as well in business and in general.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It is the time that you give up that is something that we really need to kind of consider at times as well, because we there are certain friends I know I've kind of moved on from because they weren't interested in what I was doing, or but your true friends and your true family stick by you always. So it is good to be able to really get some quality time with them, isn't it? And spend some proper time with them, not always feeling you've got to rush off and do something else. So
or apologising if you're having to take calls in the middle of dinner and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's a short-term thing, hopefully, and like I said, that's my goals really and whether that brings a family with it.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, you're only 30, and I'm sorry, I thought you were still in your 20s, but 30 is a great age, so you've got lots of time to think and really spend time concentrating on your business for the next few years and really make that truly very successful, I know. So I asked you prior to the interview if you could share 3 tips with us. I know we did touch briefly on one, but would you be able to share 3 takeaways that the people listening, reading or listening or watching the video can actually go ahead and think, right, I could perhaps apply this in my business?
Sure. I mean, I did a blog about this not too long ago, but I'll depart from one of them because I think it's about the sector that you aim at for me in terms of business success, and that's not to say if you didn't come from that sector you couldn't be successful, but you're giving yourself a hell of a job. So if you we're really talking to people who are right at the start thinking what they might want to do in business. So for me, one of the most valuable things that I've brought to the Link app is my knowledge and understanding of the legal sector, and that informs a lot of decisions. It informs the technology. Sometimes my developers will come back with a fantastic idea and it'll be great, and it'll be like, wow, that's amazing. Take it out because lawyers won't practically help them, or they won't maybe understand that it's too complex. So understanding your market, and that's for marketing, social media, for when you're talking to clients, for sales, for all of it. If you come from that background, that will really help. That'd be number 1. Number 2, I'd label it as self-belief, but you can package it up as a lot of things: determination, will to succeed. But it's going to be hard. And I think we've quite frankly talked when we've been doing this interview about the sacrifices you make, etc. And all of which are worth it, by the way. I wouldn't change it a minute of what I do, but you need to have that self-belief. You need to know, you need to back it up with a good plan, because everything takes longer than you hoped it would, so in terms of finances and stuff. But it's no good to just have self-belief and nothing to go around it. But you really do have to, times are going to be hard, and you need that real grit and determination. That's the difference I witnessed, and not talking about myself necessarily, but between really great entrepreneurs and people who haven't quite made it. And it's that steel, I suppose you'd call it. So that's number 2, self-belief. And number 3, what would I say for number 3? I mean, we alluded to it before. I think goal setting, and goal setting comes in a few things. It's a physical writing down of goals and things that you want to achieve, and I would break those down into very small goals. So 100 followers on Twitter, you've not conquered the world, but it's still an achievement for the business, right through to the global aspirations of being a household name, for example. And I break those goals down and I would review them regularly. because I think that's really important, because then you get to celebrate some stuff as well, because I think we're quite harsh. We think, right, what does success look like? And that's going to be different to everybody. So success might be, just working for yourself and being able to pay the bills, or it might be being a multimillionaire. But if you don't have those defined goals, you maybe miss some of the successes that you have. So you can celebrate the little wins, and I think the same in life, whether I'm in the gym or I'm sat behind my desk at work. If you break the goals down to smaller chunks, you can just be a little bit prouder every day. So
yeah,
that would be my 3 tips.
I love that last one. I think it is celebrating the wins, because we all work very hard, and particularly nowadays there's so much to do. There's all the different types of business marketing, all the different structures and the people you have to get involved, and just being able to celebrate those little tiny wins and say, actually, pat on the back, I've done really good, I've done really well, and be proud of what you're doing, because that's part of success. I think it isn't all about just having lots of zeros in the bank. You've got to recognise the whole picture. And I also love the self-belief one as well, because I think you do have to just have that almost tunnel vision that nothing's going to stop you. And it depends what you're putting together, but certainly for my business, it was something very new, like you were doing, very similar, because people hadn't heard of it. It was something different at the time, and you just have to have that vision of where it's going, that drives it forward. So I absolutely love that. So thank you so much, Lauren. Before we go, because I know we've been on the call nearly half an hour or so now, and I really value your time, I'd love to make sure that people can connect with you, and because you're a great person to know, and I've been looking at your Twitter, and I know you're very active on there, and there are a lot of people in our audience who would be really interested in connecting with you further and finding out more about what you're doing with the vlogging and all of those kind of things. So how can people connect with you? Where are the best places for them to find you?
Well, being ever helpful, I like to consider myself. I've put them all in one place. So my website is www.laurenriley.co.uk, and on the homepage of that, there's links to all my social media. But essentially, it's Miss Lauren Riley is my handle. So Twitter is @MissLaurenRiley, Instagram @MissLaurenRiley. You can follow the leads through from the website, and of course, the website has a bit more about the business. It has links to the Link App website. It has my link to my YouTube channel on the video page, and of course my blog, which I've been doing a blog for that on the Huffington Post. I've done that for just short of a year now, so there's quite a lot of content on there, and some of the press articles I've done, which if people were interested about some of the interview answers I've given, I sort of expand upon that in different articles. So yeah, laurenriley.co.uk is probably the best place to start. Thank you. I'd be delighted to connect with your audience, particularly. I presume the most of them are women in business, and that's
exactly
I'm hugely passionate about. Whenever I do any sort of media interviews or public speaking, I'm always a real champion of that. So congratulations to all those ladies out there doing it for themselves.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, they will love to hear that, because there are a lot of people out there, and I think more so now as we've been given the chance to go online and be seen more easily if we want to be. So thank you so much, Lauren. I will make sure that your website and the details are in the show notes. Obviously this interview will be going into the digital magazine next month for December 2015, and I just want to say thank you once again for having the time to spend with me and sharing all those great tips and things with our audience. So thank you so much, Lauren.
So very welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.